Your cult boyfriend coming at ya with another video about Children of Paradise, 1945, directed by Carne. This is such a good movie. This movie is fantastic. I love it. It's so good. It was really moving. So, of course, the story in its most simple explanation is a mime, a criminal, a count, and an actor all fall in love with the same mysterious and ineffably beautiful woman um, named Garance. And it was really moving. Uh, this movie is really well known for the portrayal of the mime, and the mime is really, there's so much pathos. Of course, there's so much pathos. Probably one of the best performances I've ever seen. The mime will break your heart and lift your spirit simultaneously. Speak to that naive dreamer in all of us. The sentimentality is transcendental when it comes to the mime's pathos. The mime is so good. In fact, like the film inspired me to like go out and actually like met like to notice the beauty you really didn't see in some people, you know? Like, I don't love life, I love you. To notice the beauty that you didn't notice in certain people, that can be so captivating. Like, I took an intermission during this movie, and I went out and I saw a friend, I saw a girl, and I was like, oh wow. The Children of Paradise is really speaking to me because I'm kind of wanting to idolize you in this moment. You're importantly beautiful, you know? It's such a tender and moving film. And while everyone talks about the mime a lot, I found myself not only relating to the most, but I was entertained the most and touched the most by the criminal character. It's probably that cynical postmodern part of me that I will never outgrow. But I mean, he's deliberately because he's a poet. Like he's like a would-be poet turned master criminal, and he does not do tragedies, he does farces. And a farce is just a more truthful term for a tragedy, probably, so far as he's concerned, because he deals out murder and romance as if it were a play that he was in the middle of creating. And a fabulous performance, a fabulous character that I just relate to so much. The kind of demented pathos, but it's a really sensitive one. I really loved it. I really loved the criminal. I love Garance, right? There are a lot of ways to view this film. Um, Quite a few ways to view the film. One of the ways that immediately came to my mind was I knew that Carne was one of the films that really inspired this one was The Great Dictator. So the first time that cinema's greatest mime ever spoke on film. Um, and kind of not what the content of The Great Dictator was, but rather what it meant as a moment when Chaplin decided to speak. Because it's almost like Garance is the audience and is taken away with the actor who is has a lot of bravado, and he does speak a lot, and he does have things to say, but he also has a lot of nothingness to say, but he's a powerful force, and he's an attractive figure, a more masculine figure as well. Audiences being drawn towards the more bombastic flavor of talkies, while the mime is pining away in the open, but in a more artful way, in a more truthful way. And I think that the Garance, the audience, can tell that it's not mere timidity; it is complete sincerity. Not to imply that any of the men who loved her were insincere. Possibly the Count, but his insecurity and his insincerities are very difficult to parse, very difficult to interpret correctly. Um, God, this film is incredible. It's one of those quality French films, like quality as in a capital Q, as in um, kind of not a great word in the art house. But even this film, while the French New Wave filmmakers kind of railed against Carnet's larger body of work, they never took issue with Children of Paradise. They praised it till the end. In fact, Francois Truffaut once said, "I would trade every film I ever made to direct Children of Paradise because it is so special." One of the criticisms of the film that I find so fascinating, it might be the most fascinating piece of criticism I ever heard levied towards a film. And the criticism is this: Children of Paradise doesn't need you. Children of Paradise feels like a film that is almost so self satisfied, so confident, so completed that it doesn't even need to be watched. It's a film that doesn't need you involved, which I find to be a very ironic criticism. And I'm not saying that there isn't weight to that criticism. I just don't think it's there because I found it so touching and so involving. But it's almost as if like Andre Bazin, a lot of different like famous Dudley Andrew, a lot of famous film critics have contested or directly engaged in this criticism, and I find it just so ironic that like I bet that all of Garance's suitors would say the exact same thing. She doesn't need our love. She doesn't need me. She doesn't need us. She just exists. Because Garance, if anything, played by Arletty, she is what all art desires. Not simply an audience, but that audience that gives you value, that gives you a raison d'etre, that gives you a reason to breathe and to live. That's what Garance represents. She represents everything that the artist desires. And yes, a criminal is an artist. Um, a mime and an actor are clearly artists. An account is an artist of capitalism or blood. Everyone here is an artist of society, class, and criminality and romance. They're all artists. And they're all drawn towards Garance, who seems to be it's such a magnificently complicated performance because she seems so disinterested and yet at the same time so invested in all of these men in completely unique ways that are unique from one another. And that's the way that the audience is. The audience is that woman that you're trying to romance, but not the madman, not the crowd. There's a difference between the crowd and the audience because the audience is directly involved in the art, whereas the crowd is mindless. We're talking about her. We're talking about the heart of the art itself, and the heart of every art piece that has ever been invented for the public is that person who can see it and then transform it, because art is also transformative. Our art doesn't, because that's why this criticism even exists, because art, especially film, but the same could be said for literature, music, or painting. um, Art is not simply the creation of the product, but it's how it is engaged with as well. Because if it's engaged by that perfect woman, right, that perfect girl that this film idolizes and fantasizes over, that woman can transform the art into something even more dynamic, into something even more tender and more pure. That's what these men in the film are drawn to, and that's what they want of their art, because their art is the makeup, the definition of their life. And that's why some people feel like this film doesn't need them and why that would be a problem, but they're misunderstanding. Everyone needs everyone. It takes all kinds to make a person lonely. All kinds of people. And I don't know that even if it Children of Paradise does feel so completed, and it does feel self-satisfied because it has all of these different personalities inside of it. giving it all sorts of different life. In fact, I mean, I may have loved the criminal and the mime the most, but I think the criminal, the mime, the count, and the actor all represent certain parts of my personality. It was kind of a wildly sympathetic feeling watching the film because I saw myself in each of them. The count, the least, but he also had the least interiority. If we're talking about the criminal, the actor, and the mime, I saw myself in all of them, and I can definitely understand what they saw in Garance. I can definitely see what they saw in her. Besides ineffable beauty, it's that beautiful part of you that is blossoming all because you're in her orbit. I can feel that so much. It's such a beautiful picture. It's such a beautiful film, and it really touched me. I was so impressed by Children of Paradise. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. And I know that. It's considered one of the greatest French films of all time. And I would have to agree. I think only that the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, the Demi film, and The Rules of the Game, only those two films are better. Children of Paradise is a phenomenal fucking movie. I'm deeply impressed by it. I'm deeply moved, and I like to be moved a lot. And this film really does it for me. This film is incredibly moving, and even given its length, its runtime, I wish I could live there. I wish I could be involved with those characters forever. That's another piece of criticism. People wanted to be involved in these characters' lives and see certain outcomes that weren't given the chance to flourish here. But I kind of like that we don't, because it's over 3 hours long, and we're all begging to be around them more, to see them on more of their misadventures. And each of the characters too. It's a deeply French film, and it's a deeply important film historically. Each character, the criminal, the actor, the mime, and the count, are based on real people from the boulevard of crime. It was fascinating doing the some research for the movie and learning that there was a would-be poet termed celebrity criminal. That was so cool to read about. And also, apparently, the greatest mime that ever existed. Who was caught up in a huge murder scandal in which everyone flocked to. I'm talking about real life now, not the film, but everyone who flocked to this the mime that the mime in the film was based on. He was caught up in a murder scandal, and like his trial was so attended, like so many people were there because it was the first time that they would be able to hear the world's greatest silent performer speak. That's fascinating. You can make a film about that if you want it. Children of Paradise is incredible. It's a beautiful film. I'm your cult boyfriend, and I'm in awe and I'm in love with Children of Paradise, and it's such an important film, and it's a film that means so much to me. If you haven't watched it, please do. Thank you.